What is going on, everybody? My name is Jake with Code 4 Defense, and today we're here in the shop taking a look at the ML19 by Iray versus the Flir Breach. These devices are both about $2,500. They're both the overall about same length, and they weigh about exactly the same. So why would you pick one over the other? Let's get into it. We'll start with the Flir Breach, some of the benefits that it has over the Iray ML19. The very first thing that you're going to notice when you pick up the Flir Breach is that the quality of it is outstanding. The polymer overmold that's here is very reminiscent of like a PVS 14 style device. The plastic is extremely nice. The aluminum that houses the screen and the ocular are very well made. The buttons are nice. The battery cap is extremely nice. Everything about the Flir Breach screams quality, it screams durability, and I have absolute confidence that if I tossed this in my duty bag and I rolled around for hundreds of miles for hours a day, every time I picked this thing up and I went to use it, it would turn on and work perfectly. The other really cool thing that the Flir Breach has going for it is that it has onboard recording capability. So it's all you have to do is tap this button and you get a screenshot. And then if you double tap this button in the middle, you get constant video recording for 2.5 hours worth of onboard video storage, which is a pretty cool feature. That's kind of where the Flir Breach stops, other than one very specific use case, and we'll talk about that kind of at the end of the video. So we'll pick up with the Iray ML19, which again is about 2,500 bucks. It's the exact same length and it's about the exact same weight. The build quality of it is definitely less than the Flir Breach. Not that this thing is poorly made or cheap. It's just you can tell that I wouldn't necessarily be as confident with tossing this in my gear in my duty bag and rolling around for hundreds of miles, bumping around and getting it to extreme colds and things like that, as much as I would the Flir Breach. It's it's just how you can feel it, and it's just pretty apparent that the durability is not the same. That said, it's still a quality unit. I don't want you to misunderstand me when I say that I still would trust this for quite some time to do what it's supposed to do. The battery cap on this is far less ideal than that of the PBS, or excuse me, the Flir Breach. It's just very fine threads, and it takes the perfect parallel to be able to put it on there and thread it on, whereas the Flir Breach has very coarse threads, very easy to find in the dark, very easy to change your batteries and put the battery cap back on. The ML19 has a front iris screen protector, or excuse me, not screen protector, lens protector, whereas the Flir Breach just has this rubber kind of PVS 14 style protector, which just slips right over the front. So the ML19 outclasses that 100%. The focusing ability on the ML19 is better than that of the Flir Breach because you have a gross focus here on the front and then you have a fine focus here on the back, whereas the Flir Breach just has one focus and it's here at the back. I'm not quite sure how it focuses its image, but it seems to be a bit more blurry than what the ML19 offers. I'm not quite sure why. That said, the biggest thing that you would compare these two for would be the image quality. And when it comes down to a head-to-head battle, and I'll play some video footage right now, the ML19 beats the Flir Breach hands down. It's not even a comparison, really. The ML19 gives you details and features that the Flir Breach can't even touch, and it's really, really impressive. Every time that I look through this device, I am constantly shocked at just how good of a thermal monocular it is for the $2,500 price range. It's absolutely stunning. The Flir Breach is usable. It does a good job for what it is. It can easily pick up a thermal signature, but of the two devices, the ML19 is going to give you a lot better PID as opposed to the Flir Breach. Now, I will say that both devices have an electronic menu that's extremely intuitive and easy to function. Both units have digital zoom. Both units have the ability to color correct, or not color correct, but temperature correct On the fly. Both units, you can change the color palettes to all different kinds of color palettes. You can change all the different settings you would ever want. So both units are very similar in that regard. The ML19 has one mini rail that's located here on the top, as well as one other spot to put it here on the side, whereas the Flir Breach has 3 mini rails located around the circumference of the body itself, which is a pretty nice feature if you want to attach it to a rail and change it on the fly or something like that. So why would you want to get one device over the other? Well, if your use case for this is to have this as a standalone thermal monocular that you pull out of your bag, you scan an area for, looking for a heat signature, and potentially be able to identify what that heat signature is, then the ML19 is going to be your go-to. It's such a good image quality, it's just not even funny. If you are looking for the increased durability, and that's a very important factor for you, then maybe the Flir Breach is going to be your go-to. It can still pick up thermal signatures. It's still got a very usable image. It's just when you compare the two, the ML19 outclasses it hands down. The Flir Breach does something, though, that the ML19 doesn't, and it's extremely frustrating that it doesn't have this feature. So if your use case is going to be helmet mounting this so that you can overlay it with either your regular human eye, or you want to overlay it, or you want to use it in conjunction with like a PVS-14. So say you had your Flir Breach on your non-dominant eye, your PVS-14 on your dominant eye, then the Flir Breach is going to be the way to go. And there's one very specific reason for that. In the settings of the Flir Breach, you're able to adjust the screen location up, down, left, and right so that it can perfectly overlay with your aided eye from the PVS-14. Why that matters is the thermal monoculars work by, it's not like an analog pass-through device. It's got a camera that relays its information to a sensor that processes it and puts it onto a screen that then you look at directly through the ocular on this end. So the device has no idea where these objects are in space relative to your eye, and specifically your other eye, meaning that if you didn't correct the image so that it overlaid with your other eye, you end up with like a ghosting effect. So with the Flir Breach, you're able to fine-tune that adjustment so that the two images perfectly overlay each other. And with a PVS-14 and this device, you end up getting a very similar image to what you would get with like a clip-on thermal imager, where it overlays the thermal image in front of the PVS-14. This just uses your other eye to overlay that image. And it's actually more useful than a Kodi because you can take this off and use it as a standalone device. It also provides a lot more information than what a Kodi would provide. So I think it's actually a better option than a clip-on thermal imager. In a lot of cases, especially for things like I'm going to be using it for, it's just this is the only way that you can helmet mount it with a PVS-14, which is kind of my use case. So the ML19, conversely, does not have the ability to correct the image up, down, left, and right to overlay it correctly with your aided eye through like a PVS-14. And I'll kind of show you what I'm talking about. So if this is the thermal image, or if this is the aided image with the PVS-14, and this is the thermal image, what you're going to have is a ghosting effect where the objects that you're looking at are offset so slightly. And it could be 6 inches, it could be a foot, depending on what you're looking at. Some people, it lines up perfectly. Other people, it doesn't. So it's kind of a roll of the dice whether it's going to work out for you. And until you get it in your hands and you actually try it, there's no way to know. So could I recommend it for helmet mounting with PVS-14? No, I can't. This is going to be your go-to. So to summarize it all, if you're looking for a monocular that you can pull out of your bag, scan an area, find a heat signature, and potentially identify what that is, then the ML19 is going to be the way to go. If you're looking for a device that you can helmet mount and use in conjunction with the PVS-14, the Flir Breach is probably going to be your better option. Also, if you're looking for something that's a little bit more durable, a little bit more long-lasting, then the Flir Breach is also probably going to be the way to go. If you guys have any questions, please leave them in the comment section down below. If you found this video helpful, give us a like, and if you're interested in this type of content or you want to learn more about some night vision type stuff, then be sure to give us a subscribe, as we're going to have a lot more of this type of content coming out in the near future. You guys stay safe, and we'll see you on the next one.